Hi there and welcome to this dev update for motion matching for Unity version 2.2.5. Anyway, you're going to have to excuse my voice. I've fallen pretty sick just after getting 2.2.5 out. Corona. I mean, it's not Corona. I don't think it is. But either way, I'm at home all the time anyway, so it doesn't matter. So let's just get into what is new with 2.2.5. This will be pretty informal, unscripted video, just showing you what has happened. Mxm is in a place now where it's probably not going to see huge features. It's more like in a maintenance phase. I may from time to time have pushes where I get out new features, and there's a couple of small ones here, but it's quite big, and major feature changes can affect users' existing projects. So if I'm going to really push massive changes, it'll probably be in a kind of a sequel, motion matching for Unity 2, which I'm not going to start yet because I've got other projects that I need to get out of the way. But you know, when and if that does come around, depending on a multitude of things, you know, that'll be like your dots sort of thing, which is a complete rewrite, to be fair. But anyway, let's forget about that stuff and let's talk about 2.2.5. First thing you're going to notice in the demo scene, I've added in all this UI. Don't worry if it's like taking up your whole screen. You know, you're just going to change the resolution or whatever, and you can hide it by pressing HUI. So I mean, I guess without this, you might not have known there was some certain things you could do, like strafing or whatever. But you know, just some information. It's mostly for new people, and also there's some notes because it's really easy to get the wrong idea out of motion matching. That's one issue I've had. People often see a trailer or something, and they assume it's like a character system. It's really not. It's an animation system. You got to make your own character. I'm never going to be the kind of developer that's going to develop templates for games. Like, it's just not my thing. I want to develop powerful tools so that people can make their own games. I don't want to develop templates to, you know, that people just kind of copy. You know, it's fine for people that do. That's just not me. So yeah, motion matching is a tool, and that's all it is. So there's some information that tries to help clarify it. Like I can say it till I'm blue in the face. It's all over, like the amount of things that I add each time I make a release to the store page, just to like make sure people kind of understand. People still got to read that though, and you know, there's still impulse buys and stuff, you know, where people don't read the thing or watch the videos or find out anything. They just see some parkour and click buy, and that can sometimes cause friction down the line. But hopefully, you know, it becomes more clear. But anyway, there's one interesting thing I've added in here. So I mean, we got these. We can hit H to remove it. We've got these like profiles. There's basically 3 different characters, which I've done different settings. So this high quality one, it's just going to be like not very responsive, but you can see that it's like doing the turns fully. You know, it's not skipping anything. It's a bit less responsive, but you know, highest quality sort of settings. And these are 3 different prefabs now included with the demo, so you can sort of see what I've done to create these different quality settings. He's holding down the right mouse button to do the strafe. I really like actually some of the strafe stuff. It was interesting. It was a bit of a learning experience. So like, I've discovered there's some things when you'd go with turning the hips, like you can turn, you know, there's some quick turns that happen, which is something interesting with the way of doing strafing like that. But I think there's some pretty cool stuff. Like if you start straight and you go backwards, it's sort of like back pedals for a step, and sometimes does that twist, whether you might like that or not. But I guess that's that. I am working on some mocap to do a version where the hips don't twist. It's probably a less realistic kind of way to do this sort of thing, but you know, it might be more desirable for some people to do it that way. And yeah, you got all your, you know, your slides and stuff with control. Anyway, that's all the information there. You know, a more responsive one with less quality, you'll see the turns, it sort of skips out on some of the frames just to get that turn quicker. I've ramped up the, you know, the angular error warping, so you can like kind of turn a lot faster. And yeah, and the balanced one is kind of the one that was always there. So yeah, that is that. The other thing I've added, so I'll just get rid of this for now, is the the new dedicated turn and play system. Now, I actually haven't changed anything with Mxm to get this to work. This is an extension, and I'm using the event system to do explicit turn and place animations. Now, I think I kind of, but I was trying to, when I recorded the mocap for doing the turn and places, I was trying to, you know, do as quick as possible. So doing small turns, you'll notice that I kind of just shifted my feet. So, you know, if I'm right foot forward here, and then I just kind of go left foot forward, so a tiny little shuffle. I don't think it looks as good though. So I mean, that's just really the animation thing, but you know, the animation system's working. So to do this this turn and place, you know, basically in the follow your nose kind of animation, it doesn't really do it, but I've done it in the strafe mode, where if I'm holding down the right mouse button and I turn, the character's going to play the turn and place animations. If I, for example, go this way and I press down the strafe button, it's going to turn around completely. And I'll show you how that's set up. You can get it to do it in different situations. It doesn't have to be by like this strafe method or whatever. But yeah, basically on the extension, you can tell it, you can tell what direction you want to face. And, you know, if it's meets all the requirements of like being idle and all that, it'll then figure out which event to play and play it. So there's that. Let's have a quick look at what that looks like. You can see there's my 3 different versions of Kyle: high quality, balanced, and high responsiveness. So let's go to balanced here, and let's just reduce all of these. Take up so much space. Okay, so this is an Mxm turn and place extension. Now, it's a new component, you could say. But don't get worried about having so many components. It's actually better to have these components more modularized like this, so you're not forced to have this in your system updating every frame if you don't want to use it. With how extensions work, you can take a look at the code, and this can be a good idea of how you can write extensions for Mxm. Basically, it doesn't have its own monobehavior update function, so you're not getting the update overhead. It's updated from Mxm based on a whole bunch of things. It can choose when in the update phase of Mxm to update, and that's in the code basically. But anyway, for this particular one, we can set a blend time for our turn in place. I found it was a bit better to have a longer blend time than your typical Mxm animator, which I usually set around, well, in this case it's 0.3, I believe, in the general tab. Yeah, 0.3. So I just set that a bit higher, up to you really. And then you basically get these turn in place profiles. So they're different sort of angles, I guess. So I've made tip 90, tip 135, and tip 180. I did have 45-degree angles in here as well, but I decided to use the 90-degree turn for it and use the warping to make that line up, just because I thought they were better animations. You might have good 45-degree turn animation, so you'd add this. So you basically make as many sort of ranges, or whatever the angle increments you have, so like 4 usually. I've done 3. You can give it a name, so this is the event name, and you can give the angle ranges that it triggers. So for example, it's going to trigger this event between 45 and 90. Now the trick here is that this particular extension, it differentiates between left and right, but it kind of adds this for you at runtime when it's looking for the event to play, underscore left or underscore right. So you kind of just write it here without that underscore left or underscore right, and the event ID that you put in your preprocessor is going to have that, and I'll show you that in a bit. We can choose to warp it so that it exactly lines up with that turn in place, the angle that triggered the turn, it's going to exactly line up, even if, for example, a tip 135, the angle is 135. Well, if it's 120, because 120 is within its range, it's now going to actually go 120. It's going to warp it. So you can check that on and off if you wanted to warp or not want to warp. There's a few more features that I could add to it, but I wanted to get it out and see how it goes. There's things like prediction of the turning, time warping to make it faster if you want to get that turn in a certain amount of time, or even things like detecting if you've kept turning, if you've gone over the current turn, maybe there's some logic to trigger another turn and cancel the current one. Stuff like that. It can actually get surprisingly complicated with turn in place, but this is a basic system to get started. So yeah, there's that turn extension. There is actually one other extension, just so you're aware. So Mxm event layers, it allows you to play, it's actually got no settings. It's just kind of an extension to the functionality of Mxm. It allows you to play events on layers by calling begin event on this script instead of the Mxm animator and passing it an avatar mask. I won't show you that, but it's just know it's there. It's not hard to figure out by having a look at it. But anyway, that is the turn and place extension, which is now included. The other thing I want to show you now is calibration modules. Now, to preface this, actually, I need to show you a bit more about the turn and place extensions, how I set up the events. So let's go to our demo. Motion matching, where's my preprocessor? Here it is, and I've actually need a module. So all my turn and place modules are in the strafe category in this case. So here we go. I need to check it out because my version control doesn't let me edit it if I don't check it out. And here's the turn and place. So I've just got a mirrored version of it. And here are my events. So now that I'm doing turn and place with events, you could actually just go do not use on the whole clip instead of just in these individual parts. I've just left it. But you can see here, we've got this, see tip 45 underscore right. So I've set up the events in the event config. I've made left versions and right versions. So just note that that extension will always affix underscore left or underscore right with a capital letter, depending on whether it's a left or right turn. So when you set up your extension here, you're only writing the first part without that postfix. So that's an important thing to note. So yeah, I've set it up here. I've basically made it so that, I mean, you can do it any way you want, but it's going to act like a normal event. I like to put the event actual contact point. Let's go and actually preview it. So I've actually put the event contact point at the point where I'd say that the turn is pretty much finished, and it's just kind of like a little bit of shuffling to get into place. You can see that there. And then the yellow is the section where, well, we can start another turn in place or we can start moving. The red part, so the follow through is really short. If you do want to use warping, you are going to have to set up, why is the sun so large? There we go. You do have to set up the angle for your contact. So you can see I've set it up to 45 here. Just make sure it's pointing in the direction that your character's facing at the end of the turn. So for example, this one here, it turns and he's facing that way. So if you want to use the warping, you do need to set that contact rotation. And yeah, you set up these events. It's meant to be a very explicit way of doing turn in place because motion matching doesn't handle low motion movements very well like turn in place. If you had some crazy turn in place where you're like really active, then sure, it might work. But I found it very unpredictable and unreliable in turn in place, and that's why I've made this more explicit extension. There's also a different case where you might even want to say, well, when I'm idle, transition to Mxm. You know, that's something that you can do in my Motion Symphony, which is my Unreal version of this tool that I'm currently developing. I've actually kind of done away with the idle system because of the complexity of the graph that UE4 provides. I can just say, well, you know, we don't need to worry about motion matching and idle. We can just do that separately. You know, use the right tools for the jobs. Unfortunately, Unity kind of forces you to have this monolithic setup. Hopefully that changes with dots animation, but that's just the way it is for now, unfortunately. So that's the end of that. So let's have a look at one other thing, and I'll preface this by showing you the calibration sets that we've had up until now. So here's our Mxm animation data, and originally I attached the calibration sets to the animation data because it had to line up with the number of joints. So you can see it's got all the right joints here, and this had to line up, otherwise you're going to get problems at runtime. Now unfortunately the problem with this is, well, just watch what happens when I change this. okay, that took about 2 seconds just to change one number. And the reason is not because of this GUI here. The reason is because the animation data has all the baked poses. There's a lot of data in this file. And when the inspector tries to read this file to create the inspector, it's loading that in every time it repaints. So every time you do this, it's loading in that that data and sorting through it, and it's just too slow to iterate quickly, and I don't like it. So I've added in calibration modules, which is basically this calibration section here, but as a separate asset, just like I've done with other modules. So you can see in the demo, I've got this new folder called calibrations, and you can see this new asset. And as I said, it looks exactly the same. So I'll check it out, but it's fast. So, if I change this number, bang, straight away. So now that's just something you can do. So to create those, you right click and go create Mxm utility, and then Mxm Calibration Module. When you first get the module, it's not going to have anything in it. Now you do need to link it to an animation data. And the reason for this is to stop those cases where your calibration, number of bones in your calibration doesn't match your anim data. So we can throw in our anim data to, link it so it has the same, bones to match. And we'll get this option, do you want to copy calibration data from the new source animation data? If you say yes, it's actually going to copy all that information now. I don't know what's happened there, but anyway, it's here now. So all that information is being copied from the anim data. Alternatively, you can say no, and then you can just sort of create your own calibration set and whatever. But if you want to copy it over, you can do that. I'll just delete this for now. Now, how do we now use this asset instead of the calibration data on the Mxm anim data? Well, on our character in our Mxm animator component, we have a new option under animation data called Calibration Overwrite, and we simply slot it in there. Now it's going to make sure that whatever anim data you're using is compatible with this calibration for you. So you don't have to worry about that too much. I mean, you do want to make sure it's compatible, because if it's not going to use the override. It's going to use the calibration on the mocap anim data like it always has anyway. So, that's just a failsafe to stop errors, but you do kind of want to make sure it does match up anyway. If you have multiple anim datas, you can change this at runtime. There is a property for that. But most of the time you're only going to have the one anim data and, different calibration sets. So that's about it for new features, a lot of bug fixes, a lot of stuff in the background that you're not going to see that's good to have. But yeah, that's about it. This update has been quite long, as I said, unscripted. So thank you all for watching. That has been an update for motion matching for Unity version 2.2.5. See you next time.